up on both hands.
This still sounds like she is trying to mother him.
Exactly.
This part where she says that if I was a boy, we'd run away together and have a capital time, but as I am a miserable girl, I must be proper and stop at home. There's something similar that she says in the chapter when she and Laurie meet and he has the sore throat. And I think I wrote it here. Jo says, "Why don't you invite girls? Girls are quiet and like to play nurses." Like she doesn't have a very favorable view of her gender.
Even though she does like nursing.
Yes, and Louisa May Alcott was a trained nurse, so I think this is interesting.
She was, and that's one of the things I find fascinating too about this chapter is that she was in Washington. Mm-hmm. She did go, she didn't have to imagine it or wish she were there as a young lady, but as a mature woman, she actually was there.
You have been reading hospital sketches.
Yes, I read it. It's pretty quick. It's not a long read. Well, I think I can see how, I know I can see now after having read it, why it's cited as the piece of writing where she found her voice. It's energetic, it's witty, it deals with serious topics, but it's just a quick, lively, enjoyable, thought-provoking read. Just like Little Women is.
I will add it to my long reading list. Wasn't that
one of your quicker ones?
Yeah. Wasn't the guy in hospital sketches like Friedrich, the German soldier?
There's a gentleman who is mortally wounded that they make a reference to, and I think his name is Dan. And he comes up periodically in among scholars, and there is a Prussian. He is helpful, very, very helpful to her when she runs into a problem with a delirious patient. And he comes up a couple of times, but he doesn't factor in as powerfully as the mortally wounded soldier who passes.
Yes.
So, I kind of wonder, there's a lot of things that when you read it, you will be able to see, oh, here's a name, or here's a phrase, or, you will recognize them because they show up later in Little Women, and you can see the influence of even her own writing on Little Women, beginning with hospital sketches.
I believe the soldier she was nursing, it was actually based on a real soldier who Louisa May Alcott took care of.
Yes. Yeah.
One of those pretty bare prototypes, I believe. If I can manage the young one, I can the old one, muttered Jo, as she walked away, leaving Laurie bent over on a railroad map with his head propped up on both hands. "Come in," and Mr. Lawrence's gruff voice sounded gruffer than ever as Jo tapped at his door. "It's only me, sir." "Come to return a book," she said blandly as she entered. "Want any more?" asked the old gentleman, looking grim and vexed, but trying not to show it. "Yes, please. I like the old Sam so well. I think I'll try the second volume," returned Jo, hoping to propitiate him.
Hello, friends. It is Niina from the Little Woman podcast. Just to let you all know that the Little Woman podcast episode transcripts are now available as books. You can find them as paperbacks and ebooks. They are wonderful reading for all the fans of Louisa May Alcott. You can find all the links from the description. And now, back to the show.
By accepting a second dose of Boswell's Johnson, as he had recommended that lively work, the shaggy eyebrows unbent a little, As he walked the steps toward the shelf where the Johnsonian literature was placed, Jo skipped up and sitting on the top step, affected to be searching for her book, but was really wondering how best to introduce the dangerous objects of her visit. Mr. Lawrence seemed to suspect that something was brewing in her mind, for after taking several brisk turns about the room, he faced round on her, speaking so abruptly that Russela's tumbled face downward on the floor. "What has that boy been about? Don't try to shield him now. I know he has been in mischief. By the way he acted when he came home. I can't get a word from him. And when I threatened to shake the truth out of him, he bolted upstairs and locked himself into his room."
Did do wrong, but we forgave him, and all promised not to say a word to anyone. Aunt Jo relented. That won't do. He shall not shelter himself behind a promise from you soft-hearted girls. If he's done anything amiss, he shall confess, beg a pardon, and be punished. Out with it, Jo. I won't be kept in the dark. Mr. Lawrence looked so alarming and spoke so sharply that Jo would have gladly run away if she could, but she was perched aloft on the steps, and he stood at the foot, a lion in the path, so she had to stay and brave it out. "Indeed, sir, I cannot tell. Mother forbade it. Laurie has confessed, asked pardon, and been punished quite enough. We don't keep silence to shield him, but someone else, and it will make more trouble if you interfere. Please don't. It was partly my fault, but it's all right now, so let's forget it and talk about the Rambler, or something pleasant." "Hang the Rambler. Come down and give me your word that this harum-scarum boy of mine hasn't done anything ungrateful or impertinent. If he has, after all your kindness to him, I'll thrash him with my own hands." The threat sounded awful, but did not alarm Jo, for she knew the irascible old gentleman would never lift a finger against his grandson, whatever he might say to the contrary. She obediently descended, and made as light of the prank as she could without betraying Meg, or forgetting the truth. See, there you go, right? His threats are they don't mean anything. I'm surprised he shook him.
Yeah, they go to deaf ears.
Yes. He understands Laurie very well, but he's a grandfather. He's not a parent. And there's a lot of history between that was there that had nothing to do with Laurie, but's connected to Laurie, and whatever else he may be going through, whatever his emotions may be, we only really learn of them through Marmee, and it only comes up maybe once or twice, kind of in passing. So, I mean, there's a piece of fan fiction for you, Mr. Lawrence.
I think he's kind of trying to build a relationship with him, but he's not very successful, at least in the beginning. Laurie doesn't really know his grandfather when he moves to Concord. Like, they have been living together only for a while now. And we don't know if he went to see him when he was living in Europe. And somebody commented once that if this prank that Laurie made would have gone out and then people would talk that John was actually courting Meg, it might have had a very negative impact on John. He might have been fired and Meg might have lost her reputation because she was 17.
I have never thought of that.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about because people gotta expect Meg to marry a rich man.
Jo even harbors an idea in her mind that at one time that Laurie and Meg would hook up. But she does that again with Beth.
Yes.
She's always hooking everybody up with Laurie except for herself.
That's because she wants Laurie to be her brother.
Yes.
It was interesting because somebody asked me about this, like, isn't that like contradicting to Joe's character? Why would Louisa May Alcott do that? But then I was thinking, well, if she really had this incredible maternal feelings for all the boys in the world, I don't think she necessarily saw anything wrong with that. Joe wanting to marry Laurie to any one of her sisters except herself.
Exactly. It would just automatically make him the brother she already wants him to be. Solves the problem.